Well, good day one more time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to see you back from coffee break. A couple of people are still playing around in an IT demo center, and that's quite good. You can test the 3D printer and feel the digital at the tip of your fingers. We are back here and we're going to start our second session, which is called Digital by Default. And within this session, we're going to have five short presentations from people who are insiders in the politics and at the same time in the enterprises. And afterwards, we're going to have a panel discussion. As you see, we have already the setup for the panel discussion, and this is going to be a bit unusual just to open up the perspectives, the minds, and make it more open, and of course, more playful, playing the game of team. How it's going to happen, we're going to see this, but till that, you can meditate and think on this orange thing, which is staying on the table. This is going to play quite important role in panel discussion. So we are ready to start our short presentations, and the first one I'm happy to introduce after the coffee break. It's always challenging again to take the stage, and please Mechthild Rohen, Head of Unit Public Services, Directorate General for Communications, Networks, Content Technology of the European Commission. So, Ms. Rohen, the stage is yours. Applause, applause, applause.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning again to those I saw already yesterday at the CNECT conference, which was a great event in this great building. Also from my side, thank you for that. I had, when I prepared my short presentation now, a bit of the opposite problem, but a similar one, as Arne said this morning. He said, I gave him the title of my speech, but I didn't know what I wanted to say in 3 months' time. I know what I wanted to say when I agreed to his request to come to here and to talk about, in particular, cross-border services. But then I found myself under the heading Digital by Default. He said, what do I do with that now? So I made it easy for me and for you, saying that I would like to combine digital by default also with cross-border by default, because this is what characterizes cross-border services in Europe. And I would like to explain a bit where we are in this in Europe, and I have well heard the criticism of Arnes this morning. We have worked a lot on it, but where we are and why are they not yet rolled out? And I would like to make a link also to the different EU funding programs which have been used so far for funding the different activities, and there are several programs involved, and quite often we hear that people get confused how this is co-organized and so on. So I try to shed some light on that in my little presentation. Now I try. It works. Very good. Just to make it clear, this digital by default and cross-border by default are for us principles of a larger vision for public services. Just to mention them here, that you have the overall context. They have been discussed this morning already, saying that in addition to digital by default and cross-border by default, governments should also be open, transparent, and collaborative. Robert has explained that this morning in more detail, so I do not need to go into that here. Secondly, also, governments should embrace an innovation culture. And there, I can say what we have done on the cross-border services. This is exactly what Mr. Gengers this morning said in his speech. He said, we should co-innovate before the Big Bang. And this is what we tried at European level for the cross-border services. What have we done now so far? We have been supporting, and when I say we, is the the Commission, in cooperation also then with the Member States, because we cannot do anything without you. And when I say we Commission, it means different Commission services, and that means also then using the different funding programs which are available. We have been supporting the development and the deployment of cross-border services from piloting activities to production. Where are we today? When we look at the, let me say, the innovation and deployment cycle, a couple of years ago we started with the so-called large-scale pilots for development or for the establishment of cross-border services in Europe. Many of you sitting here know these projects. For those who do not know, just a few examples. STARK is a project which was piloting on cross-border electronic identities. PEPL was the one which was piloting on cross-border e-procurement. E-Codex is the one working in the e-justice area. SPOX is the one which has worked on the Services Directive and the points of single contact. EPSOS is one in the area of e-health. All these large-scale pilots have been operational and have developed so-called building blocks. Arne is referred to building blocks this morning, which can be used for the creation of, or for the running of cross-border public services and for the creation of new ones if these building blocks are reusable. When we say we have created building blocks, this was to achieve interoperability between national existing systems. So we never have changed any national IT system, but ensured building the bridges, building the interoperability bridge, and that in form of what we now call digital service infrastructure under the Connecting Europe Facility program. Where we are now, you see that here on the timeline in 2014, 2015, after piloting, we are in the phase of consolidation of the results of all these large-scale pilots. Consolidation of results meaning making the building blocks on electronic identity, on e-invoicing, on e-delivery, on e-signature, and there are more of them, now mature, that they can be transferred into the Connecting Europe facility as a platform and there be used and rolled out. We are now exactly at that stage and just before, let me say, the even point to more mass rollout of these cross-border services. Somebody said yesterday to me, but why don't the cross-border services not yet work? Why don't we have them available? My answer to that is because we have just finished the piloting phase and we are now in the phase of the early adopters, and we hope that by 2020 we have indeed achieved the early majority. And the support for the rollout is coming from the Connecting Europe Facility program. It means what we do there is we deploy these digital service infrastructures together with help desk and whatever you need to run them in a production environment, while also looking into a comprehensive governance structure in cooperation with the policy owners in the Commission, but in particular also with the Member States. Because what we are creating is an ecosystem of building blocks which can be used to create more compound and more complex cross-border digital public services. You need to identify yourself for many services you want to use. You need also a mechanism to transfer documents in a safe way. E-invoicing is something which is relevant for e-procurement, but also for taxation and other services. So this is what we call the ecosystem of building blocks we want to establish under the Connecting Europe facility. I mentioned already the couple of building blocks which go first under the Connecting Europe facility, and these are eID, e-signature, e-delivery, e-invoicing. Very soon, automated translation will join the first set of building blocks, and in the subsequent work programs of the Connecting Europe facility, we will add additional building blocks which will reuse those which are now there in order to make new services, being it either in the area of e-health or being it either in the area of consumer protection, that will come in the future, but it will be decided always in cooperation with the member states because they have the final say of what is funded under the Connecting Europe facility. And now I'm already at my last slide, which shows how, or which should show how the different funding programs relate to each other. Under the Competitiveness and Innovation Program, here very smallish indicated and now replaced by the Horizon 2020 program, we have financed or co-financed all these large-scale pilot projects. What do we have at the end of such a large-scale pilot? We have, when we are lucky, a set of building blocks which are exactly the right ones, but which may not be mature enough in order to be deployed in a production environment which is provided by the CEF. So if we take this yellow arrow here, which indicates the service development path for the digital by default services in the cross-border context, the way we have gone so far is we started in the SIP, or now in the future in Horizon 2020, develop the pilots, run experiments with them, and ideally it is a mature building block coming out which we can then transfer directly to the CEF. The Connecting Europe facility can be deployed there, and off we go. Quite often this was and is not the case. So with the help of our friends of ISA, at the end of such a pilot, we found additional financing in order to make either the building blocks more mature or to help financing sustainability measures, because some of these building blocks or the projects expired already before the CEF could start. So then some limited ISA funding was used in order then to have at the very end of that a building block which is mature, which can be run under the CEF. But we can have also cases where indeed in the large-scale pilot somebody develops a building block is developed, but it does not need any further ISA funding, it goes directly to the CEF. At the same time, ISA does a lot of other activities than helping to mature building blocks coming out of the member state cooperative projects. Then they can also go into different angles. So this slide is meant to show you how the different funding programs are complementary to each other in using funding which is available in order to achieve the ultimate goal and the ultimate aim when we talk about cross-border services run under the Connecting Europe facility. And the next step is then indeed that after the end of 2020, the Connecting Europe facility then expired, that this ecosystem of building blocks can be self-sustainable and self-financing. And we do this together with the member states. We are currently in the process of setting up governance structures in order to keep the ecosystem of building blocks together, in order to ensure also sustainability and, let me say, more efficiency and effectiveness, while adding step by step new building blocks and reusing the existing one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Rohen. And you gave already a wonderful foundation starting the facility issues and topic and connecting Europe, and I believe the continuation is going to be also to this direction. Margarida Abecasis, head of unit of Interoperability Solutions and representative of European Commission. Please, yes, come. Do not stop, do not stop. We want you here, please.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning to the people in the room. Good morning to the web. Good day for every one of you. So I hope I will be able to manage this. There are only 2 buttons, so I should be able to do it. In the next 10 minutes, I'll be speaking about digital by default from the perspective of interoperability. I will try to enumerate some of the challenges that are identified by the member states in implementing interoperability and how, at European level, we are trying to help achieve interoperability. So I think you should remember this slide that you have seen this morning. Stefan explained what is in a name, what is behind the principles that we want all to implement in our national administrations. And behind all this is interoperability. He explained also that the situation in Europe, in the national administrations, well, we have two flavors. On one side, everyone shares the same concepts, everyone shares the same, is conscious of the same needs to achieve interoperability, but on the other side, there is difficulties in implementing. So we had done a survey among the national administrations, trying to identify what are the challenges and difficulties that they face when implementing interoperability. And this slide shows a couple of these, number of these challenges. The first one that I want to highlight here is the financial constraints. And the financial constraints are often linked with a novice to the implementation of interoperability, which is the focus on maintenance costs of legacy systems. We all know that as legacy systems became older and older, the costs became higher and higher of the maintenance of the systems. And they don't leave much room for innovation. They don't leave much room to replace the system. So we have here a problem. And we think that sharing and reuse and joining forces between administrations is a condition of success in innovation. And that is why we are working and will be working in defining business models, cost models, so the different administrations that join forces, that share services, that reuse solutions, can find themselves in win-win situations where there is no administration that is putting the money and others are benefiting. So everyone should benefit and every administration should find their happiness in this. Of course, we all know also that behind some reluctance in sharing and reuse, it's the whole phenomenon of not invented here. Yes, it is true. But I think it is important to say that we have managed in the public services to do a lot of innovation. And we have seen, I don't know, there are some of you that certainly do not live that experience, but I did. When I entered the Commission, the different directors general had their own local area networks, which they managed, which meant, for example, that moves, heads, and changes were done by each Director General. These are things of the past. So it is clear that there is, the public sectors innovate, go forward, it takes more time, but the context is, of course, a little bit more complicated, if I may say so, than in the private sector. So keep the focus, keep on going, and we will get there. The second aspect, the second difficulty that member states' administrations mention is the legislation. Conditions for exchanging data that are written in legislation. Security. Who owns the data? Different national administrations have different perspectives on this. It's the citizen that owns the data. It's the administration that owns the data. I don't think these are barriers. I think these are conditions that we must live with and we must respect. For example, one of the things that was mentioned is the independence and the autonomy of the public authorities. I recall that this independence, it's one of the pillars of the democracy. So it is important that in our work we respect these laws that are behind. And I have found an interesting text that has some years old. And it is the French, the original is French, so I try to translate in English correctly. Thus, we must consider the citizens the actionaries of this big social enterprise. They provide the funds. They are their masters. It's curious to see who said this. It is a guy that was called Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès. And he wrote this in 1788. This guy was a churchman and a lawmaker in the French Revolution. So these concepts have some, are old, but not outdated. Coming back to the legislation, I think it is also important to notice that whatever the legislation and whatever the different legal conditions that are there, putting order in our systems, putting order in our base registers are also a condition of conformity to the legislation. For instance, in the base registers, if we don't know where is the information, we don't know where is the data, we cannot manage it, and we cannot guarantee that the laws are respected. So our work is important also to guarantee compliance to legislation. The third point that I would like to highlight here is governance, coordination, and enforcement. It was also mentioned here already this morning, and in all the conversations that we had, and in all, for example, good practice that we have studied, coordination, good coordination, deep coordination were always words that come again and again in the table. It is important to put the means in place for the coordination, and these means must be sustainable. This is important also, the sustainability of the means. Enforcement, it is dealt with in different manners and in different member states. It can be by law, it can be by financial constraints, and it's up to each institutional and organizational context to adopt. But it's something that it must be taken care from the beginning. Come back to the back. Two particular points in interoperability that I think are of special relevance here in this context are the catalog of services and base registers. The catalog of services are essential, for instance, in a cross-border environment where citizens and business are looking for public services in different countries than their own. What is the situation today? The situation today is that they are faced with a multitude of web portals, a multitude of single points of contact. And they are not only a multitude of single points of contact, but also a multitude of description of the public services with different contexts behind this public service. So not to mention the language problem. So this is also a difficulty that is facing today national administrations in implementing interoperability. And what about base registers? Can we say that they are today the authentic source of information that they are supposed to be and recognized to be by the European Interoperability Framework or by the national interoperability frameworks? Unfortunately, that is not the case. There is still a multiplication of registers. There are no guarantees of data quality and preservation of the service that is offered, and there is no awareness of what are the base registers available and what are the conditions of service. Also at EU level, we face this kind of situation, and we are trying to handle it. So, now, what are we doing? What we want to do and what we'll do in the future to help implement interoperability in member states and national administration. So Stefan showed this slide this morning and explained some of these parts. I will address the two last ones, base registers and catalog of services. So in the area of catalog of services, in the context of the ESA program, and together with a number of member states that are voluntary in this area, including Latvia, we are trying to harmonize the description or identification of the key business events and the description of the public services that are behind the treatment of these key business events. This is the first step. Then we need to have flexible ways of integrating and interconnecting the different portals, because we won't have one single portal in one day. So we need to interconnect them. And if we have similar, coherent, harmonized description, it will be easier to integrate them. And finally, come with tools that can help the implementation. The next action that I want to emphasize is the activities that are ongoing in the area of base registers. We have the recommendations from the European Interoperability Framework, which have been majorly transposed in the National Interoperability Framework. We have identified some good practices in some member states which have been published, good practices in different levels of interoperability, so covering technical, semantical, organizational, and legal. And now we must go deeper and addressing the difficulties that were explicitly identified by the member states. And so we want, at the end of the day, to have in the joiner platform a catalog of the recommendations, of the best practice, and of the tools. And for that, we will reuse what we have the best in the member states. For example, yesterday in the semantic conference, we have been presented the register of the catalog of base registers that has been put in place in the Netherlands. This is an open source solution. So we hope with help of our Dutch colleagues to take this on board and publish. So the idea is to take tools and provide also the tools that help national administrations implement these recommendations and these specifications, not just stay at the specification level. We have other cases that will be also taken on board for these best practices and tools, which we have also heard about yesterday. For instance, Austria, they give also good lines to follow, then Spain, and Denmark was not there yesterday to present, but they also have a very good solutions in place in these areas. So we will be working with the member states and to achieve and to come with recommendations, specifications, tools, good practices. We invite you to come and join us in the Joiner platform. There are communities of practice in these areas, and these communities of practice are not limited to the public sector. So the private sector can come and work with us in these areas, so that we can take on board all perspectives, not only the perspectives from the public sector. So I suppose this is an answer to Mr. Gengers on the requests and demand that he mentioned this morning to work together with the private and public sector. So, 2 final words. First, think interoperability, act interoperability in all its levels when you try to implement these principles. That's the first one. And the second one, which I think is appropriate when we are in the National Library, it came to my mind the other day, perhaps, of this environment, and I hope Raymond Carver will excuse me, but I will paraphrase him. What we talk about when we talk about digital by default, we talk about interoperability. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Abecasis. Wonderful. And we continue with the next one, Guna Paidere, Chief State Notary at Register of Enterprises, Latvia. Definitely, Guna, where are you? Where are you? And we welcome you warmly here. From time to time, we believe that your institution you represent is a success story, so prove it now. So.
Thank you, and hello, everybody. My presentation will be more practical, and I will speak about not what we should do, but what have we done. Before I start my presentation, Daugulis had an interesting keynote presentation today where he made a clear point that if we want to move forward, then we need that there is a strong leadership in place. I can only agree to this because for the last 15 years, the business register in Latvia was privileged to have open-minded and forward-thinking management. So the people who understood the need of and importance of service-oriented institution. Before I move forward to the benefits of the online registration, here's the little introduction. So the Register of Enterprises register well over 10,000 new companies a year. And the growth started in 2004 when Latvia became the member of the European Union. Then there was a drop in 2007 and 2008. It's the time when the economic crisis hit us hard. And I have marked the year of 2008 with the red. It's the year when we made possible for people to submit electronic documents and to register their companies electronically. To prove that the last 7 years has been a success, I want to speak about 4 important characteristics of e-services. It's the speed, convenience, benefits to the customer, and security. To register the company in 2007, you had to do a lot of paperwork and sometimes ask someone with the legal background to help you. Now it takes approximately 25 minutes to fill in the electronic form, and because of this, because of the e-services, also people in our side and government side can work more efficiently, and that's why we can offer to complete this registration process from 1 to 3 days. The same 2007, our register premises were fully packed with people standing in long lines. Sometimes it wasn't far from the scenes you can witness in the New York Stock Exchange. In the worst case scenario, you had to come to the register and only if you have to have a single signature on the document. Now, when we have e-services, the situation has changed, and we see that the e-service is the benefit for both sides, also for the government and also for the client, because with these long lines and a lot of this paperwork, it's pretty exhausted for both sides to complete this, all those processes. So the e-service really showed the convenience. Important benefit, of course, is the cost. Company setup costs are very important to our clients. We clearly saw it when the government and state introduced a new type of limited liability company with reduced share capital. Instead of usual company with the share capital approximately 3,000 euro, it is possible to register a company with the share capital of €1, and it was a logical step to also to reduce the costs related to the preparation of the application. And when we introduced electronic services where people could sign documents electronically. Then this signature certification and verification costs came down from approximately €7 to 40 cents. So it's the 17 times less, and it's only direct costs. If we start to count what does it take for the entrepreneur to come to the registrar's office in person, I think the costs are even bigger. Always when we speak about e-services, I hear the argument about the safety and security. Is it really secure to do things online? Experts tend to say that the electronic signature may be not 100% secure, but from our experience, I can say that in these last 7 years, we haven't registered a single bad case. Yes, we still see and tackle wrongdoings in paper form, but not in electronic environment. Now I'm afraid I said it loud, and I really hope that Murphy isn't here today. This was a very short presentation, being given just 10 minutes to speak today, but I want to stress one very important learning from our experience. It was crucial for us to learn what our colleagues were doing. We learned from the best, and that's why we are proudly mentioned today among the best. And I personally learned that the cooperation is must if we want to perform the digital single market strategy and implement it for the good of our citizens. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Paidere. And definitely this possibility to do electronically. When I was founding my own small pocket company, before that I paid much more in the parking just going to you. So sorry about parking. This is, I believe, dying branch because of digitalization. Anyway, just joking, no offense to parking. We are continuing with John Kootstra, International Coordinator, Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Relations, Netherlands. Please welcome with applause.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Thanks to the presidency to giving me the opportunity to share with you the Dutch approach on the digital by default. Also during the lunch of a coffee break, we were discussing with some colleagues the issue of digital by default. Communicative, it's a very interesting topic, but there's also a different interpretation of digital by default by different countries. And at least I would like to share a bit how we are dealing with this principle. During my presentation, I would shortly run along the lines, what have we done in the near past, where are we now, which direction are we going, and what are important things to consider when we talk about digital by default. In general, I would say if we look at what we've done in the past, there's a lot of complexity behind, but if I, given the limited time frame I have, focus on the most important points, I would say that we started to set up a joint action. Important to know is that each organization is responsible for digital services. In the Netherlands, we see that there are digital services in some of the large executive agencies who deal with student grants, who deal with child allowance, old age pension, and income tax. At the other hand, we also see at the municipal level a large extent of services. And only in the recent year, we also saw a shift from central tasks to the municipalities in the social and welfare area. So each organization had its own ambitions. Each organization was meeting the expectation of its own citizens, of its own customers, and it is, we try to organize and concerted action around things like creating digital services and also reduce administrative burden reduction. And we set targets in the past and we monitored the progress. Moreover, I think as of the 2004, we started the development of a joint infrastructure, an infrastructure to be used by all those organizations who deal with digital services to their customers, an infrastructure which makes it easier for them to make services better. Parts of the infrastructure, and I think they are similar in different countries, includes portals, so where citizens and businesses can go to find the right access to the government. It's about authentication and also the system of base registers, which is an important foundation in our policy, also making the issue of once only possible. Next to that infrastructure, we created intergovernmental agreements so that there was a kind of joint effort about the implementation of the infrastructure. And we also provided implementation support for municipalities. And the implementation support especially was done by an agency within the Association of Municipalities called King, who provided the implementation support to the individual municipalities. If we look where are we at this stage, we could see that the infrastructure is to a large extent ready to be used. So it enables the service providers to improve the services. As an example, I have mentioned the pre-filled forms. Many service providers already offer pre-filled forms. Whether you apply for an unemployment benefit, you register with your DigID, the Dutch authentication solution, and a pre-filled form is already presented so that government shows what we already know about you. In the local area, municipalities who give parking permits can already show what rules apply to you in your own neighborhood, so that you can immediately see, do I need to apply for a permit, and if so, what are the fees which are applicable, and it's more easier to apply for the parking permit, where in the past it took longer and you had to do all kind of extra administrative acts like going to the parking management, etc. Moreover, we also see a broad implementation of the infrastructure. Looking, for instance, at the DigID, more than 170 million transactions are done on a yearly basis, and which is each year we see a kind of increase of the transactions. Moreover, more than 1.6 million people have an active account on the My Government personalized pages, and it's expected that will tremendously increase in the years to come, because the tax administration, which can be considered as a kind of a launching customer, will use this My Government platform also for providing for some of the functionalities for the communication with its citizens. So already 10 million messages are being sent via the joint message box, one of the functionalities in that My Government platform. It also creates a possibility of looking into the registers, see how you're registered, so that citizens can check if the data in the registers are correct. And in the next years, we also want to show with whom the data are being exchanged. Another reality is, say, already the digital delivery of the high-volume services. of the main national agencies. We already have some figures about it I will share with you. For instance, if we look at the European statistics in the DESI, the new European Economic and Society Index, we saw that 56% of the Dutch citizens return forms on the internet. But if we look at some of the high-volume services, we see even more interesting results. Students, a group who you expect they are highly digitally skilled, more than 95% of them apply for student grants with the agency Duo. But also people who are unemployed, which are considered to be less digitally skilled, also more than 96% are applying for the employment benefits online, and it's a very interesting feature. One of the reasons behind is also that in the work and income domain there has been an obligation for the people to register with the UWV, that's the insurance agency in the Netherlands, online. It was also driven by a kind of budget savings, because due to the economic crisis, the number of unemployed were increasing, and it was considered that the execution cost should be diminished. So they decided to close down local offices and to shift to the digital channel. The employed people, like the people reporting the income tax, it's about the same figure, so we don't really see large differences. Even for the elderly people, people who are asked of applying for the old age pension when they are getting the age of 65, almost 2/3 of them apply for it online. These are interesting figures, but I also have to be frank, it's not a complete figure in the Netherlands. There are still offline services which could be done online. We don't have a complete picture about to what extent the municipalities, for instance, are having take-up figures, but in the next future we want to monitor that as a part of our program. If we look, for instance, at the availability of municipal services, we identified 55 most important services, and we have seen that at least half of them is already online, but especially smaller municipalities still have things to improve. That's also why we set an ambition that by 2017 businesses and citizens should interact with government in a digital way. The society is digitizing further. People can do their banking systems of banking transactions online. They can shop everywhere online. So they also expect the government to be dealt with in a digital way. In that perspective, we prepare legislation, not legislation in which citizens are obliged to use the digital services, but the obligation is posed to the public administrations. Whereas at this time, in the administrative law, it's settled that with mutual consent of both the administrative organization and the citizen, the communication can be done online. Now we would like to put that obligation at the side of the public administrations, allowing citizens a right to interact with the public administration in a digital way. Next to that, we also are preparing legislation to make parts of the information structure I just mentioned more mandatory. So, in the past, we were building the infrastructure, and now we're at the stage that we can also put more legislative framework around it. Next to that, we also stimulate the e-services to be used. We don't have set a target on the usage of the e-services. It's up to the responsibility of each organization, but there's a joint community who discusses about how you can improve the services, having more focus on the user when developing the services, etc. And also about channel management, so that a kind of there's a shift from the traditional to the online channels.
Last 1 minute.
Last 1 minute, okay. To conclude, important is that when we talk about digital by default, we should consider three things, of two things. Most important is if we really want to have the service of the citizens use the services as they are developed, citizens should be convinced that the services are easy to use and secure, so that they can trust and they are helpful for them. But we also should consider that not all the services are suitable for the digital channel. I just mentioned about the decentralization operation in the municipalities. The principle is to have an interaction with a personal interaction with the citizen, know what his problems are, what can be done in the social network of that citizen, and finally what the government should do in order to improve his situation. Another one is things which deal with security. For instance, in the Netherlands, for getting a passport or a driver's license, we have to go to the municipality twice. So that's really because of security. We want our IDs to be safe. And finally, not all the citizens are able to use the digital services. I already mentioned the high figures which were provided by the national agencies. In the figures are also services which were done by family, for instance. So it's important to realize that not all the people do have the skills. So it's important to allow people, family, friends, and other people in the network to act on behalf of the people, and also to provide with support where the skills are lacking. So that's why we prefer in the Netherlands not digital by default, but rather we say digital where possible and in person where needed. And by that, I would like to conclude my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kootstra. And you can take a break, but you're going to be back here in panel discussions in a very short time. And the last presentation in our first presentation set, Marianne Sorensen, Head of Division, the Agency of Digitization, Denmark. Please, Scandinavian perspective.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation to speak, and thank you for the interesting presentation this morning. I only have a very short time, only 10 minutes, so I will start right away. Try to make this work. Yes. I will start with giving you a very short introduction to the Danish context, because my presentation is sort of a case study of Denmark and how we interpret digital by default. First, Danish citizens in general use computers and the internet almost every day. Normally in international rankings, Denmark is in the top rank. That is one important point. Second, in Denmark we have a very long tradition for cooperation in the public sector on IT. We started in 2001 with the first common digital strategy, and we have cooperated on the digital infrastructure since then. That means that we have a strong fundament, and moreover, a lot of these solutions are not only used in the public sector, but also in the private sector. For example, in Denmark, it is possible to use the same EID or digital signature in the public sector and in the banks and in a lot of other private companies. And third, I think it is an important point that when you have an ambitious digital agenda, it will affect society. So you will need a strong political mandate and also a strong leadership, as was also stressed earlier today. The Danish government has an ambitious digital strategy. The strategy has three main tracks, as is shown us on this slide. The first track is about no more printed forms or letters. The second one is about new digital welfare. And the third one is closer digital cooperation. In the third track is also, for example, the use of data. And that is also an area which is very much in cooperation with the private sector. But today I would like to focus on the first track, no more printed forms or letters. In that area, we have a goal. The goal is that 80% of all communication between government and citizens should be digital by the end of 2015. So we are almost there. There are many reasons for this goal. I think I very much agree with the Latvian case, which was presented just a few minutes ago, that it should be easier for people, for the citizens, easier for the enterprises to use digital channels. But in Denmark, the Agency for Digitization is placed in the Ministry of Finance. So I would be lying if I was saying that the economic perspective was not a part of it. We have looked into the cost of different channels, and as you can see in the slide, there are big differences. So when we saw that, we thought we really want to push more to the bottom of the slide. Yes, and we wanted to do it fast. We could see that there was already a development going on, but we thought it was not going fast enough. Therefore, we decided to introduce legislation, and we call it legislation as a game changer, as you can see. We wanted to push forward as fast as possible. There are two wheels on this slide, and the first one shows the situation before. We had a situation where we thought that development was going on, but it was going too slow. It meant that there were not enough incentives to invest in good solutions, and that the public sector was having too many questions and problems with these digital solutions. So we tried to put in legislation as a game changer. Now people are digital by default. That means that the citizens and enterprises are compelled to use the digital solutions. It is possible to be exempted if you fulfill some certain criteria, but the thing is that when you have introduced this mandatory digitization, it increases the volume in the digital solutions. And we have, as a part of this development, also improved the digital solutions, made them more user-friendly. We have big work going on across the public sector, in the municipalities, in the regions, in the state authorities. And now we can see that the level is going up. So the thing is that it started a positive development in a faster way than we could see into. And we have collected a lot of data, and we can see that legislation has increased the speed significantly. Our strategy is not based on a big bang strategy, but it is based on a gradual transition to a mandatory digital communication. And as you can see on this slide, we are almost there. We focus on two main areas, and that is digital post and digital self-service. And we have introduced digital post last fall. And in December 2015, we will introduce the last phase for digital self-service. So we come a long way. We have also had a lot of problems on the way. For example, with what do you do with the users who has problems using the internet, with the elderly, the young people? In fact, it was very interesting that when we introduced digital post, it was the young people who had the most trouble, not the elderly. I think that was because the young people had problem understanding the public sector. They don't have a problem with IT skills, but problems with understanding the public sector, and they don't understand the language and everything. So that was another problem we hadn't expected from the beginning. And in fact, now we had expected that around 20% would be exempted from digital post. But the actual figure shows that now it is 11% of the population. I find that very interesting. And we also have a great degree of users who are satisfied or very satisfied with digital post. And one interesting point is that we expected that, for example, the homeless people would be exempted because our statistics shows that they have a low IT skills, and moreover, they have problems with access to the internet. But in the city of Frederiksberg, where I am living, the homeless have to show up from time to time to testify that they are still homeless. And they have used this as an opportunity to tell them about digital post. And actually, the homeless people think it's a very good idea. I think they live up to the rate, because 8 out of 10 now use digital post instead of receiving physical letters. So I think sometimes you have to turn things a little bit around and not be afraid that things turn out in ways you haven't expected from the start, and be open. That being said, we still have a lot of challenges. I think now, when we have made digital mandatory, people also expect that the services should be even more user-friendly. So I think one of the focus areas in our next strategy would certainly be user-friendly solutions. We are not there yet. One entry, and once only, and the better use of data in the public sector. I think that would be a big area in the new strategy in Denmark. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And you can stay, in fact, on stage, yes. Or to be more precise, you can sit.
I can sit.
Wonderful. You have fans already in the room. One of the Latvians are writing, "The mighty Danes, 6 years of e-Denmark experience has made me a fan. Intuition, effectiveness, easy, all-inclusive." Oh, It's so nice. And of course, about homeless people and registration on the internet, it reminds me a nice joke from early 2000s when the boy is lost in the town and the policeman is coming and, who are you? I don't remember. Where do you live? I don't remember. Who are your parents? I don't remember. What do you remember? My email address, lostboy@gmail.com. Anyway, we are continuing with the panel discussion, and on the panel discussion, I'm kindly asking back to join us here. Robert Madeline, please, Stefan Quest, Arnis Daugulis, Normunds Bergs, who is joining us the first time today on the stage, and of course Guna Paidere and John Kootstra, please, here on the stage, and we're gonna start our panel discussion game. I can even feel that you are absolutely enthused because they don't know what's gonna happen. That's so nice and spontaneous and alive, I believe. And which means now you are sitting in the nice line and feeling so comfortable. That's typically how you sit and you discuss things. But we're gonna introduce a piece of game in all of this. So Arnis, you are like the borderline here in this spot. Please turn with your chairs a bit toward each other. You are in one line. Yes, 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 yes. Stefan, please, yes, join this. We cannot leave them in couple, yeah, okay? So you, no, like this, more like this. No, 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 you, yeah. Other side. Now make a U-turn, okay? No, just in the line like this, in the line like this. One line, yes, continue, continue. More, enter. That's it, good. And the second line. Good, two teams. You see each other, more or less. And we have a wonderful invention of Latvians, which is called catchbox. This is microphone within the very soft item. You can drop it, you can kick it, but not too strong anyway. And we're gonna discuss the questions from audience and of course the digital by default according to one and single team rule. When you finish your thought or argumentation, I like how you did it. You just like took away some dirt from that's good, ready for the game. When you finish your line and your idea and thought, because that's a team work to work for digital, you have to pass the ball to other speaker, which is, at your strong perspective, able to continue your thought or idea. When the answers will be over, I like you like it. When the answers will be over, oh, you already make a decision just to make a close pass all the time. Then we're gonna switch to the next question, and I believe we're gonna feel the game within the gaming. At the end of panel discussion, we're gonna drop this in public. Maybe there will be some victims of that, but anyway, you're gonna catch it, and then you're gonna have possibility to ask the questions also in the catch box. And Normunds, you have this wonderful chance to be here first time on the stage today, because all the people have spoke already. So I, with all my respect, I'm giving you the are you ready? Yeah? No, well, that's absolutely true. So I'm giving you the catch box, and you can start with short commentary from you, what you felt today here, and you are pure representative of industry, and I see that you are enthused by possibility to say the first words in the catch box. The idea is that you speak just like this. Keep, yep. And afterwards, we're gonna answer the questions which are in our short text messages. Please, Normunds Bergs, the floor for a short moment is yours, just some short commentary to break the ice. And if you're gonna speak too long, like in football, I'm gonna show you the yellow card. Okay, good. Normunds, please.
Thank you. Yes, I was a little puzzled by sitting first half of this day here. Reason being that we had really nice presentations and there was no wrong word in those. But I was missing like two main things, which to my mind is extremely important. First thing is technological, that all those e-whatevers needs to be optimized for this screen, right? And this is huge, huge challenge. So all government IT systems always speak of big screens. So the world is changing, and especially if we are talking about people coming from somewhere, they have small screens. So, and from that, we had a small discussion over coffee break, and for me, all that discussion was like we were discussing different swimming styles, a lot of modalities, a lot of features, but we don't have a water in the swimming pool. So we do not have rooming. So if you go with that small screen somewhere, first thing what you do is you switch rooming off, right? So sometimes I think that those are Wi-Fi manufacturing lobby very strong, you know, who is lobbying that high roaming charges between the countries. So you don't use your screen in other countries. And second is that one and common digital signature or authentication tool, which will tell you that me is me, because without it, all that is useless, right? So it can work in each and every particular country, but never across the borders. And I think without solving that, all that other discussion is purely theoretical. So you cannot implement that without it. And the third note is that we were not discussing that person at all, that man or woman coming somewhere looking for that digital service. What, in fact, is the service he or she needs? So to my mind, it's not those government registers at all. To my mind, there would be two things. One is to able to see and book a public transport ticket, and second is to get a help in case of health or security emergency. So, and by solving the real people, real problem, we can show to the rest of society that EU digital, digital environment or digital country is really united, so you can get the same service everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Should I throw it somewhere?
You can pass the ball, which is in cube, in fact. You can pass the cube to, for instance, I believe that could be nice test ground to Mr. Daugulis about e-mobile comment and just reply to your comments. Great. And you are live. That's so cool.
You know, I'll try. I remember two of your 3 points, but the first was about mobile. Latvian answer is we have put in one of the core principles in our architecture. Every service needs to be usable also by any kind of mobile devices. So any new thing which is developed by this point in mind. And the last one I remember was about the question about service. What person expects as a service from the government?
The local one, someone from other countries, to make it cross-border. Local ones are easy.
Yeah.
Local ones are easy, just repeating in the mic for the broadcast.
Local ones, and following to what was said by a colleague from Netherlands, and also Denmark and Latvia is also doing a lot of work in this. I think the perfect service from government would be such which for me as a citizen limits to the minimum the need to interact with government. For instance, tax declaration. I wouldn't like to fill in a form. I would rather like to confirm with my SMS that all the data government already has is okay and the declaration is submitted. Easy. So that's the target we should be moving towards, and this is also about digital by default and once only, without the need to enter data several times, but the data is used for my convenience, the data which government already owns. But now about cross borders. We have to acknowledge the fact that the business is getting global, and if I manage to create my pocket company, like you coined the name, then especially if I'm in the IT area and a digital startup, for instance, I would like to start operations all over the Europe as soon as I have given the company name and a number in my own register. So this would be the once only for across Europe. I register a company once in my own country, and I am free to sell my digital services wherever I want to sell them in Europe. I think this is one of the good reasons why we need digital single market. I will pass to Robert now.
Yeah, definitely. Digital single market and the question about, of course, cross-boards and are we merging together? Is this happening now? Do you see with here's in short text messages a lot of questions. What will be biggest changes within digital single market strategy? I believe you cannot answer in one simple question, simple sentence, but still maybe the framework for that from your perspective.
Well, let me answer it with one area which I said in my earlier remarks I think is crucial. What will the experience be for corporate citizens? Mm-hmm. So I think if I go for a weekend to another city, I expect to find some friendly city software that will show me where the museums and cafes are. And that's become part of the competition between almost local government in self-promotion. If I'm a company, I still expect it's really hard out there, and so most SMEs in Europe don't try to go out there. And there's a mixture, I think, where the private and public sectors can both contribute to make companies travel as easily as citizens do today. The first is in the DSM strategy. Can we establish some quite impressive numbers were given for company startups in country this morning? Can we establish that a company can go European in a matter of weeks and not months, thanks to once only mutual recognition of data interoperability? The second part of this, which I think is for the private sector, which I was discussing at the different conference yesterday here in Riga, is could we enable SMEs to have really easy multilingual tagging of their sites so that SMEs can sell to multiple language groups as easily as eBay now does? The example which probably Andrzej's in the room, which he was giving to me yesterday about how much eBay gained in sales into the Russian Federation from having Russian translations deep in its website. This sort of multilingualism is going to be a private sector, perhaps EU facilitated set of new tools which ought to make it easy to sell Scottish knitwear and Latvian jams anywhere in Europe. So those would just be two examples.
Thank you, thank you. And we are, now you can keep for a while because the next question is coming. What are mindsets of Europeans toward digitalization? Because in my country, interfaces from time to time are really badly designed. Ivan, I hope you're not from Latvia sending this message. Anyway, the attitude of the people toward digitalization at all in different countries, in different perspectives. Maybe you can pass the cube to our Danish colleague, because you are doing that now already, like it's quite usual. But at the beginning, was there some kind of, not saying, well, rebellion, but counter feeling in society? Why you are coming to me with this digitalization? It's complicated at the beginning.
Yes, I think there was, and there still is. I think it has changed a little bit in the past 5 years in Denmark, because at the beginning it was more of a concern about the groups who had lacking digital skills. What were we doing now with the elderly? What were we doing with the homeless, as I was telling you before, and all the problems with digital skills and the groups who wasn't ready. But I think now the agenda has changed. The concerns are going more in the direction of security, privacy, and that sort of questions. And also I see also a concern that the solutions are not user-friendly enough. They're not good enough. The expectations rises, and we are not always able to meet them. That is a big concern right now. Moreover, I found it very interesting, your point about going to mobile devices, but I think another concern for us is that the technological development is moving so fast and sometimes we don't move fast enough in the public sector, because when we have to make these tenders for new digital solutions, for example, a new digital signature, we have to look into a time perspective of maybe 10 years. And we really don't know where we are moving in these 10 years, so we have to be more flexible. We have to be faster to adapt to the new technologies. I think that's an important point as well.
Thank you. A bit of self-critics about Denmark. That's so good, because anyway, we are feeling that, whoa, someone is on the top, but you have still problems. That's very nice. To whom you are passing your cube, because different country perspective. The Netherlands, maybe.
Yes, I think I'll try that.
Good. Under threat was our main notary of state. Yes, please.
Yeah, what I already mentioned in my presentation is the importance of user centricity. It's important that you get feedback of your customers about the services you are developing. And in that respect, sometimes the joke was made, the government should be careful that it doesn't create its own digital illiteracy by making the language too difficult so that people cannot understand what the purpose of regulations is. So you should really think about how can you make the language easy to understand for all kinds of citizens. And of course, each service provider has its own target groups with a kind of differences in skills. And especially at that level, the communication and the feedback loop should be important. In the past, we also did a kind of work on understandable information. It was really one of the bottlenecks given by citizens to the government. So it's an important point, and yeah, the user centricity in the design of the services, it's a continuous concern.
Thank you, and to whom you pass the cube, maybe some Commission's perspective, without cube, yes. So, Stephen, please.
Oh, super. It's like playing rugby. Well, I guess my perspective is, I mean, I'm fundamentally the internal IT supplier for the European Commission population. So I have well, it depends whether you count as large or small, depending on how you count, but I have a user base of 30 to 40,000 people. So what challenges do I face getting them to go digital and go mobile? I mean, connecting with what you were saying earlier, I think the user experience is a very important point. I think we do quite badly on user experience. So we're very proud that we get something out. Yes, we've got a digital service, it's fantastic. It's a bit clunky and difficult to use, but we've digitized it and we're very proud of it. So I think one of the lessons I take is we need to work more on user experience. A second thing is that security is a real concern now. And that poses us a challenge because people want security, but they don't want the unfriendliness of security. So they want it to be user-friendly, seamless, and secure. And that's a really major challenge for us, especially because they want it on their mobile devices. And that's, I think, the real sweet spot and the really difficult spot to hit is seamless, user-friendly, safe access on mobile devices across borders, because my population is fundamentally working across, by definition, all of the 28 member states and a very mobile workforce. So that's the space I'm in as a supplier, and I think some of that we get right, and some of that we don't get right. The other thing I would say in terms of getting my population to go digital is that I think one of my pain points is the most popular digital service we provide is called email. And it's a nightmare. Because what people want to do is get rid of their emails. They don't like emails, but they can't let go of them. So there's an interesting challenge and paradox for us there about going so digital that we can make email, which is a fundamental digital technology, a rather sort of outdated and redundant. But we are a long way off that at the moment in the European Commission, but I'm working on it.
Thank you. We are switching to the next question. That's a long one. Do you really believe that public sector could serve as a headliner? Because at my strong experience, all digital innovations are in private sector at first and in public always with delay. So maybe let the Google do the dirty job. Wow. Wow. Or am I misperceiving? Oh, that's good. That's good. Or am I misperceiving situation, Anna? So who gonna answer on this? Maybe all okay, Normans, please, yes.
If I may comment, thank you. I truly believe that government should not make big tenders and make complex IT projects on the customer side. So government should make safe and secure and scalable database side, and then make public data interchange, and give that personal, that portal part, that interaction part out to the market. And that would be, I think, the most cost-efficient and the quickest way.
Or
maybe who can comment? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, Guna, catch.
And of course you should charge. And of course you should charge for paper. Only reason why Latvian company register is getting so many digitally signed papers is because otherwise you should pay for public notary, which is expensive.
Yes, the argument of cost.
Yes, this argument of cost is very important, and of course, getting back to this, do the government has developed the services? From my experience, I can say that maybe we won't, we shouldn't do this, because yes, we are lagging behind the private sector, and all the innovation happens in the private sector, and all these procedures of public procurement, it's long, and we need very good experts in our side to wisely ask what we need. And in large IT projects, we see that sometimes we fail to clearly say what we need, and then we are disappointed what we get from the private sector. But also there is another part. If we let go out of our hands this service side or this service portals, then we need the partner from the private sector whom we can trust. So to not to woke up in one day in the situation where something wrong happens and there's nobody responsible for that. So it's kind of hard decision to say what is the right cooperation between government and private sector.
You can give the cube back because the body language of Normans is showing
you don't agree.
disagreement somehow.
I'm talking interface, so data is in your side. So that argument about insecurity is not relevant here. It's just user experience which should be given out.
Okay, or continuing and adding to this, the state should give and do what the state is doing the best. Building infrastructure or basics and interfacing is on the public.
And rules and regulations and principles. And,
okay.
Because state will never make an Uber, right? State must make rules for Uber to operate in a fair way.
And please give now the cube to our Commission, Director General, because we have private, we have state, and we have something higher than state, European Union. From this perspective, not higher, but you know what I mean, then from your perspective, the same rules of the game, as Norman said?
So I'd like to go back to the questioner and say citizens will get what they want, but they have to be careful what they dream of. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I think about hospitals, where there is public and private provision, and in Europe we want availability for all, are we really saying that we don't care if our hospitals stay in the 19th century, except the rich private ones? I don't think so. I think citizens have to challenge public service providers, whatever their status in law, to get with the movement. So that's the first thing. I think we need a demanding environment. The second, I would say, is we have to be conscious that in the digital age, the meaning of public and private is changing. We're in a sort of new multipolar world, and government must conceive itself as a platform. So here, I think, in a way, I'm agreeing a bit with Norman's that whatever it is we're doing, it has to be open and reusable and accessible. And it may well be, if you think about a smart city, that the smartest cities will be enabling citizens in local areas to do it for themselves, whatever it is. But then the third point, I think, is that there are some areas where we can buy solutions in, but there are other areas, notably the legal framing, where the state has to do it. So that's not about e-government, but that's about reframing for a digital world liabilities, access rights in ways that favor digital solutions and not the contrary. But I think the first point's the most important. Don't let bureaucrats off the hook. What we would love, I mean, I talk to my colleagues as well, we'd love to be told that we don't need to change. So if the message is just give up, the private sector will do it and your successors will then catch up, I mean, everybody would breathe a sigh of relief. I mean, you know, the message has to be you've got to change, you've got to compete with the best.
Thank you. The next question, which is coming in, we are speaking about cooperation and cross borders. What are, at your perspective, from your institution, the main obstacles which are now on set? Or what if you would have a magic stick, what you would take away the first one? Good choice.
The biggest challenge what we face is that sometimes we are missing political leadership and willingness to do something. I have an opportunity during the Latvian Presidency. I chaired the company law working group, which is working on the proposal of the directive. And the main objective of the directive is to say that that in all member states, governments have to provide electronic registration for single-member companies. And we see that this project doesn't move fast. And what are the obstacles? That in some member states there are no strong willingness to do this. And that's why we are already discussing this proposal for more than 1 year, and only thing what we get is that some member states don't want to change their traditions, and we are moving back from this high objectives what was set when the proposal was released. So I think there is the leadership it's the thing what is missing.
Well, leadership, Mr. Daugulis is speaking on leadership very much. Maybe you should nominate him as a prime minister. Okay, just joking, please.
But continuing on what Guna said, it's a human nature. Human nature is our biggest challenge. And we are not, always the first thought is that if I do it myself, I do it best. But it's not at all true, especially in the digital area. For instance, the security questions which Stephen mentioned. Can you imagine that the small institution, 100 people doing their daily business, can you imagine that this institution would be capable of having security experts needed to make their infrastructure safe, and that they will do it better than a larger company where there are experts in software, hardware, and security, highly trained, doing it on a daily basis. But these are the things which we try to use when we talk with institutions internally to convince that it doesn't make sense to fragmentize so much. There are some utility things, referring to your example of city planning, to ICT, basic platforms, basic infrastructure, which should be commonly used for many.
Ms. Sorensen raised the hand and taking the cube.
I think one of the main challenges at the moment are implementation, going all the way from strategy to development and all the way to implementing all these new digital strategies. I think one of the reasons is there's sort of an overload. We cannot handle all of these things at once. We have to prioritize and focus on the most important things. Moreover, I also think that one of the reasons why we have these challenges are that we have moved from a situation where the digital is like in its own area, and now it's integrated into all areas of the public and private sector. It's a core business now, and it means that so many more people and so many different kind of people have to be involved when we have to implement. And I don't think we have found the good way of doing that yet. We're moving in that area, but I don't think we're there yet. And I found it very interesting this morning about these figures about implementing, and when you're looking into if you had in fact implemented something, they were so much lower. I think that's a picture I recognize.
Okay, and you are passing the cube to...
I'll just pass it over.
Good choice.
I'm the lucky one. On the same question, if I go back, the original
about
question?
the magic wizard stick and the challenge you should, or you could take away as the first one, or still we are quite isolated, each of us in our cage, and how to make it more together.
I don't have a magic wand. The thing that I see is a certain paradox and challenge for us, that on the one hand, everyone is very focused on delivering things at a national level and on solving their own problems, which are not parochial, but they're necessarily rather inward-facing. And at the same time, to really make progress on some of this stuff, we have to look up and out and across the borders and across the boundaries, because that's where the solutions are. And in a sense, there's a resource and a capacity problem there, because the same people that you need to be looking inwards and delivering what the citizens want and need internally are the people that you want looking outwards at the best practice and examples across the borders. And there aren't enough of them to be doing these two things at the same time. And if you have to make a choice, too often the choice is, I'm under pressure, I was given, I thought I had 4 years to deliver this, I've only got 1 year, so now I'm going to really focus on it. And then after you focus on it for a year, you discover that your neighbor or the country the other side of the mountains has been working on the same thing, or maybe had a better solution for you, or if you've done it differently, then document A and document B would have talked to each other in the first place, rather than you having to, as you put it this morning, sort of join them up like this. So that's what I see as the problem: the national focus versus the European focus or the cross-border focus, and having the capacity to do both at the same time.
So the way out is European focus?
In my view, of course.
Of course.
Not exclusively, but I think that what we've shown through the best examples and the best practice is that when we get good European level cooperation interaction going, even if it's bilateral rather than totally multilateral, that the wins are there and that people are able to rapidly implement solutions across borders.
Okay. Please, to Normans and then to Arnis.
I have a solution for your cooperation problem. Make a Facebook discussion group. Costs nothing, sets up in 10 minutes, very efficient.
Very good, very good.
Okay, excellent.
Yes, Arnis.
Thanks, Stephen. You got very straight to the point, and I have to feel bad about myself and my team because this is really true. We also have a problem of dividing ourselves. There's a huge national agenda for us to do, and still we have to manage all the things going on at the EU level. And sometimes we are just too short of resources to catch all the things. But therefore, I was pleased when I looked at the slides from Mechthild earlier this morning, showing that all these different initiatives the Commission has, there is a kind of master plan, and they are converging. And maybe it will make it easier for us at the member states to understand what is the basic minimum, also in terms of architecture, which needs to be taken into account when we build or develop our local systems and services in such a way that we are doing it right in the first place, and are not too forced to do these things later on when the time is right to connect them between each other.
Okay. Oh, yes, Netherlands?
I think it's also a stage of maturity. I think the member states have done tremendous efforts to set up a more coherent approach in the countries. At the other hand, we see a kind of development at the European level, also resulting in more concrete products and services. And in the end, it has come together. And I think it's a question of majority. It's important to keep our eye open for the cross-border interoperability, but I think the main focus first is on realizing the national efforts and making creative linkings between in the international context in the next step without isolating at this stage completely from the others. There are important developments happening in other countries. Each country could use in order to speeding up the process, and so it's important to learn from each other and also to see where the agreements should be made, because we don't need to do everything all in the same way. There are national specific contexts which should be dealt with, but there are some common European elements, and it's important to to have attention for them and also to work on it continuously. So keeping up the good work, I would like to say.
Okay, now please give me the catch box. You can, oh my God, thanks God, he's going away. Now, from this moment, you're going to use the magic stick, sound stick, or the microphone, classical one, and we are going in the public with the catch box. If someone has some question, you can take initiative and raise the hand and then catch what I'm dropping to you, or I will just drop it, and who gets it, that gives a question, and at the end of the day, the first question giver will have cookie from me. Not literally speaking, precisely speaking, cookie, Latvian, fresh baked. Okay, I see a lot of hands up, so yes, there's none. So I'm gonna just drop it and count on your own and catch it. Yeah, you touched this, so please somehow help. You touched this, it's in your hands. Please, your question.
Nice box. Can I have it?
Yes, you can keep it like this and speak in.
And bring it home? No?
Yeah, just speak.
I don't know, I don't have question, but I want to say that was very nice discussion. I agree with both sides that there's a lot of challenges to solve, and we can deal with it with changing experience, and maybe what is the question will be, what is the best way and better way or improved way to change the experience and improve our collaboration to develop this.
Okay, taking into account that you are the first, you got a cookie from me. Don't run away, www.cookie.com. And, well, we have a question again, in fact, and that's broadening this a bit. At the beginning of the day, you said that from 150 activities, the Commission now is narrowed to 25, approximately. 60? Okay, not so ideal world as I thought before. But anyway, 60, that's more than half. 16. 16. Okay, then it's good world. Okay, 16. Sweet 16, there's a song about it. 16, how you feel about this, that Commission is becoming more focused and not so broadened? And is this the right way to go to each actor in the play, to stay more narrow, more focused, and not look for the one suit for all of the problems? I believe that's, again, the philosophy kind of question, but that's what we do today, Club of Philosophy. So you showed with the hands that...
I would go even more extreme, one at a time, maybe two. Let's say my two first priorities would be roaming and digital signature. And then only then the rest.
Make priority, get it.
Make priority, push it, solve it, and then move to the next. Because this is like cleaning of snow. You know, if you make your shuffle too wide, you cannot move ahead. You know, because your foots are slipping. Well, if you make it narrow, you can make a path.
Well, good. We are today going really to literally things, snow, Brezhnev, and 18th century. Good. What's your opinion? You can take the mic now. What's your opinion? Why we couldn't go to one by one? In fact, is this in real life possible? And maybe the next plan will not be 16, but 8. And after that, 1. And then Norman's going to celebrate in that day that just 1.
So I think that the question about whether a team should do 1 or 16 things is absolutely a good question, but the 16 is a list for the whole army of different activities. So we need to decide whether it's for interoperability or the e-government action plan. Can we concentrate on one thing and do it in 18 months? But then the question is, can we? So do all the governments of the member states agree? Which, you know, usually somebody steps back. And do we agree to do it and finish? So I think that this is where, as Guna was saying, the leadership, the willingness to say yes or no, and once I've said yes, I'll start, then to try to finish. This is a big political challenge in Europe at the moment. The second thing, however, I'd say, picking up the questioner's comment, is that if it's going to work, we're going to have to bring the intended beneficiaries into the driving seat. No, we can't be sitting here deciding what's good for them. And I think the focus on corporate cross-border experience is really important. And I don't think it has to be decided at the European level. We could always just ask that all the programmers of the solutions that we commission, wherever we commission them, check that it's going to work when our companies want to also go somewhere else, when our citizens want to get the same good experience somewhere else. In other words, if that's a principle that we think is important for 510 million citizens and God knows how many million companies, you design it into the specifications, and then it's not a question of discussing in a group forever in Brussels how to do it. It'll happen through the market.
Okay, other remarks, comments? No, then you have a wonderful chance. Where are you, my cookie guy? Oh, you can drop. Oh, they already took it from you. It's broken. Oh my God. Nobody can break it. Never.
Can we throw this?
Yes, you can, but just once. Just once. Okay. Oh, and it's working. So please raise your hand. I was really, well, bad in sport lessons. Anyway, good.
Okay, if you build a house on the swamp of different views and ideas and procedures and priorities, so this is what we try to do here, I feel. What do you have to have? You have to have a solid foundation. So instead of having so many points we want to focus on, why don't we build the foundation of the house we want to see in the next years? And I feel that we have really to push EIDAS, for example. Interoperability was said so many times. Digital signature, you said it, everybody says it. So what do you have to have? We have to get EIDAS working. If we have that, we can have the rest. That's my opinion.
Okay, and you just drop back somewhere. Back, yes. Yeah. Great, great. So answering this question about foundations of this building we are in fact building here, that term architect was used a couple of times today, and it's becoming, I believe in the Twitter hashtag architect, a lot of architects are following us and do not understand what is happening. Anyway, what is foundation? And are the direction right how we are now treating this house? Maybe we can, because you are in fact the real representative of industry, Normans, you are absolutely privileged to say your concerns about this. How you see this building of digitalization in public service?
No, I think currently there is no house. I think currently we are, I don't know,
paper bomb?
Prehistoric bullion, you know, where everything is boiling, you know, but there is no house. So probably we can find just a few really standardized things. One is a driver's license, where you have, you know, how many 15 or how many fields in that database. That even if that is written in Greek, everybody understands what is in each cell. Another probably is a passport, but not the register of persons in the countries. So this is what I would call a house. So first we have to define those database, field 1, 2, 3, 4, and implement that strictly in each and every country. And then give that interoperability interfaces. And this is it. And then let the public sector make, you know, Facebooks, Twitters, LinkedIn's, whom's not, to make that interface with the people and build the different services on top of that. That would be my approach. And I understand that politically it's close to impossible. But I think this is the right way to move. Thank you.
Is this politically close to impossible? Arnis, your comment? Because I saw that you are feeling too relaxed.
Yes, thanks. Well, the general comment about focusing. I think it's most of us have read the management books, and it's in every management book that if you want to reach a result, focus. So it's more than welcome that the Commission is now also focusing on few things. The question, what these few things will be in the end. This is an exciting question, and well, speaking more technically, my colleague Gilles from the audience just mentioned some of these, but yeah, I don't know what the discussion will end which will be the most critical pieces. But definitely, if we decide these are the 3-5 major things, then we have to put the maximum effort to make the thing done, all of us.
Okay, okay. And we had someone drop it back, and you catched it, so please.
Me and my colleagues have more or less a practical question. Maybe representatives from Denmark and Netherlands can answer. If there is a situation that there is e-service already established and made from the state budget or EU funds, but it is not very, so to say, popular in the target audience, how do you persuade for the society to use it?
That's a good question. I feel I know what you're talking about. So you design something, nobody's using that, what to do? Well, if you make an unfortunate platform for service and the people are not keen to use it, do you have such an experience in Denmark? Do you have some old shipyard of unpopular platforms where they are screaming and whining alone?
I think in Denmark we have made it mandatory to use some of our solutions as a part of this strategy I was telling you about before. But it is also important to say that as a part of this process, we have taken every solution that is made mandatory and we have given it a brush up. We have made it more user-friendly. We have in the public sector some common standards between state level, municipalities and regions that every solution has to live up to in order to be part of these waves of mandatory digitization. So before we put them out and tell people to use them in a mandatory way, we are giving them sort of a service check. That also means they have to be user-friendly and they have to be made so that disabled people can also use the solutions. But of course we also have problems still, most of all because some of these solutions are placed in a very decentral way and we develop the same solution more than once. That's not a very good idea, I think. So we try to build more common solutions. Yeah, but we have the problem.
It sounds more like the whip approach than the carrot approach. Yeah.
Can you say it one more time?
That sounds more like the whip approach than the carrot approach if you have to use it mandatory, like you mentioned.
Well, since the movie 50 Shades of Grey are so popular, I don't see really a problem with that. Okay, the Netherlands, comment, please.
Yeah. I see that the agencies who have the high volume services and who have high uptake of the e-services have been very creative in shifting the volumes from the traditional to the online channel. In the students, the agency who deals with the student grants, they had a large call center, got many phone calls, and the call center was had long queuing lists, and there were also questions in Parliament at the time. So they decided to send out the mailing just before the weekend. In the weekend in which the call center was closed, they referred to a website in which the most frequently asked questions were published. So on the Monday, when the call center was again opening, the volumes decreased a bit. Also, the agency who deals with the old age pension, they still send a letter to the people that they are entitled for the old age pension, and they get a link to a website where they can log in with their DigiID, rather than that a paper-based form is sent to them. So it's about not presenting the old traditional services anymore to the people, but to attract and to guide them to the online services. And already much gains can be reached by that, next to, of course, creating more user-centric services.
Thank you. Or the mixed solution approach. Yes, please.
Comment. I liked the Danish approach very much, and I think that would be really bad leadership to push for mandatory use of services which are actually bad services and not working on or usability problems or any other technical problems. So before we push something mandatory, we have to have homework to do, make it nice, efficient, and good for the users.
Thank you. And with this, our session is over. I believe we can give to those people who use the catch box a huge round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you, indeed. And we are welcoming you to the light lunch. Lunch is in restaurant, which is down, yes, precisely downstairs. And we are back precisely after 1 hour. 1 hour for lunch, and then we are back here. Thank you very much, and enjoy your meal.